You are listening to Lovely Talks Heavy. Hello everybody, and welcome to Lovely Talks Heavy. I am your host, Lovely, and I discuss everything I enjoy with regard to heavy music. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with the interview with Explorer yesterday. Hopefully that won't be the last of the interviews that I will have on this podcast. Only time will tell. This week, I wanted to bring you further into the past by sharing with you the story of my first concert experience. It begins with youthful 15-year-old little me, thirsty and itching to get out to a concert. My mentor at the time was down to take me to a show, provided it wouldn't cost her firstborn. So I eventually saw a listing for Sponge, Seven Mary 3, and Days of the New performing, and she jumped on that. And I was so excited. I was corny and even wrote letters for each of the bands in advance and made little drawings for them and hoped to, I don't know, throw them on the stage so that they would get them. This was my first show. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Now granted, I had only heard of Seven Mary 3 and Days of the New from their popular hits, the one that exists for each of them that the rock stations play all of the time. I never knew of Sponge before I saw them perform, but spoiler alert, they stole my heart that night. So we got to the venue, and it was a lot for me to take in at once. I had my letters in tow, but I felt like my heart was going to explode, and the anticipation from attending my first show was just more than I could handle. Like, I can't even drink Monster Energy drinks, and the first time I had one of those at that age, I was a wreck too, so imagine how I felt when it came down to attending my first show. It was so exciting up till then, because I had only heard stories of friends online attending shows and having an awesome time, and I wanted a taste of what that was like, so here I was. The doors finally opened after an extremely long wait, as any experienced concert goer will understand how that feels. And we managed to get up to front row center because all of the tickets for that show were a general admission. It was awesome. Now, Days of the New were the first to perform, and looking back almost 10 years later, holy shit, I'm old. There isn't too much that I remember other than they played their hit song that everybody knows from just listening to the radio station. And at the end, they threw out guitar picks into the audience. And I told myself at the time, yeah, I totes dig these dudes. But now, being more honest with myself, I can say that at the very least, I wouldn't have been mad, or I won't be mad, if I were in a room full of strangers in control of the auxiliary cord situation, and the only thing they liked was Days of the New. Like, I wouldn't be mad. Wouldn't be thrilled, but I wouldn't be mad either. But honestly, clearly, I never actively sought out to listen to the music after that. I mean, it was probably in my head at one point, but it didn't stay there for long. Next in the lineup was Sponge, and if you missed my little spoiler alert earlier, R.E. Sponge and my impression of them, well, I'll say it again. Sponge stole my heart that night. Days of the New started things out chill, okay? And then Sponge came on and amped things up to 100. Vinny Dombrowski, the frontman of Sponge, jumped onto the railing several times. The railing separating the audience from the stage several times throughout their set, and allowed folks in the audience to hold him upright by his legs, and that did include me at one point, by the way. It was so cool. They played some amazing shit that I got hooked on then. Wax Ecstatic, open parenthesis, to sell Angelina, close parenthesis. Plowed, of course. Treat Me Wrong. Have You Seen Mary? And at the time, that was new, Party Till We Drop. Plus many other classics that were classics for Sponge. A highlight of the night for me was that several times my dweeby ass kept trying to reach my T-Rex short little arms out to hand the boys and Sponge their letter that I wrote for them in advance. The one that I mentioned earlier. Anyways, at one point, a dude next to me that I didn't even know asked if I'd like for him to try and reach his hand out with my letter, and I said yes because, he was a lot taller than I am. Still am. I stopped growing in 8th grade, okay? He didn't have any luck either, though, so he just gave me back my letter, but it was just super cool of him to even offer that, though. Like, my first show, and this stranger just was like, hey, little dweeb. He didn't call me a dweeb, but honestly, he should have. But anyways, eventually, however, I finally did manage to get the letter out to them. Vinny eventually noticed my efforts to reach this dweeby little letter out to him, and so I stretched my little arm out, and he stretched out his normal-sized arm out as far as we both could, and he finally grabbed it and stuffed it into his back pocket and just performed it with it in his pocket the whole night. It was just really cool for me. But understand, as I was writing the script for this episode, specifically that last bit I narrated out to you, I periodically have had to take breaks in order to call myself a giant fucking dweeb and slap myself in the forehead to acknowledge said dweebiness about myself. Because, my god, what a dweeb I was. Another fun factoid was that apparently my mentor, who had taken me, by the way, and who isn't that much taller than my 4'9" ass is, as the crowd for Sponge got more rowdy, spilling their beers left and right as they were jumping around, singing along, and all that fun stuff, she was acting as a human shield for me to protect me from it getting drenched from any spillage, which I didn't even know until she told me later that night. Eventually, sadly, Sponge left the stage, and then Seven Mary 3 came on after soundtrack and setup and all that stuff, of course. And we both were getting pretty tired, but I wanted to at least hear Seven Mary 3 play the song Cumbersome, which, looking back, I could have probably just left after Sponge. Anyway, I'm going to continue the story. In the midst of all that waiting for that one song that I didn't even really care too much about, I was delighted not with the experience of getting elbowed in the face by some dude wanting to get the perfect picture, apparently, of Seven Mary 3. I tried speaking up to no avail, but eventually someone else said something, and he turned to me and was like, "Oh, sorry." It's like, come on. I mean, I complained about this a bit in my concert etiquette episode, I believe, but still, just, how do you not notice elbowing somebody in the face? It's baffling to me. Anyhow, we were finally granted freedom from the show when Seven Mary 3 finally played that one song, Cumbersome. Like, I know it's not irony, but there's some weird symbolic thing about the fact that it was a cumbersome wait waiting for the song Cumbersome. So anyways, it was such a downer though after Sponge came on, honestly. Like, they were just standing on the stage, and I needed excitement, and Sponge are the farthest from a costumed band with a performative shtick, which is typical of the stuff I do like, but they brought energy and excitement and movement into their performance, which made me fall in love with them. But that is the story of my first concert ever. My mentor and I were singing that new tune at the time that they played, Party Till We Drop, on our way home. It was so amazing seeing Sponge, at least. So if you enjoyed this episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, please share it with a friend. Every time this podcast hits a new pair of ears, it means the absolute world to me. If you want to share your anecdotes of your first concert or have feedback on the show in general, please feel free to hit me up on social media. On Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, and Mixcloud, I am simply Lovely Metalhead. Until next week, next Saturday, the next episode of Lovely Talks Heavy, you stay brutal, my friends. Bye.